You stupid bitch. Yeah, you're a stupid bitch. You stupid bitch. Welcome to this week's episode of Stupid Bitches Say What, the Aussie podcast about everything and nothing, but always with wine, and your hosts, Scarly Collett and Sean Hipkins.
This week, we are going back in time, all the way back to the decade I was born in, the marvelous 80s. My co-host was already alive and kicking by that time. Plus,
That's three.
That's just a baby. I was a newborn. But we're going to the land of neon, big hair, hashtag perms, please. I've thought about getting a perm, actually.
They're coming back.
I know. Radical fashion, Jane Fonda workouts, and some questionable yet acceptable behaviours that existed.
Indeed.
What are you drinking, Sean Bena Hipkins?
Well, tonight I'm going the whites after last week's fiasco of a double red, which sent me over the hill quite early. I thought I'd try a white and see how it goes, and I'm drinking Sunshine and Spur, which is
like a nice label.
It's a Savvy B. I think it's a good pair days, but it's a toddler. It's a 2022 vintage.
Okay. Well,
and
that's how we do, right? That's how we do.
It's actually quite nice. No kick off it. No but
I like
it's nice.
The look of the label. It's something that I definitely would have picked up.
I need to see what percentage it is. 11.9.
Okay. As compared to my 13.
Well, yeah. See, I think it tastes a bit weak. That's why I feel like it tastes a bit watery. Yeah, but it's all right. It's nice.
Yeah.
I like a bit more of a bite when I drink. Yeah. And how about you, stupid bitch? What is it you were drinking, please?
Well, look, you said it in one after last week's fiasco. And dear listeners, the Glee episode has not yet come out. But I have had the pleasure of listening to the ending scenes of the true crime episode. And boy, were we wasted.
Then it was just beginning.
Then we went on and did a whole nother episode in that state.
And of Glee as well. So our musical talents do kick in slightly.
Yes. And look, I had a terrible head on the Saturday morning and I had to drive all the way out to Laidley, which is basically cross country for those dear listeners who don't know where it is. And yeah, it was pretty brutal. Then I started drinking again at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So whilst I've got 2 different bottles of white for this evening, I've also brought in this little bad boy.
Oh, the H2O. I always have a bottle of H2O sitting nearby.
No, soda water to add to the glasses of wine. Right. So I'm going to, just for the purposes of the podcast, have a little sip of this bad boy, but then after that I'm going to put soda water in it. So I'm drinking.
Sensible drinker.
Oh, look, it's an organic. My other one tonight's an organic too. I didn't realize this was an organic. It's called Babitch.
Oh, Babitch.
Babitch.
I love
that. Maybe
it's
Babitch.
Oh no, Babitch is good.
Babitch. Select blocks, Marlborough, Sauvignon Blanc. It's a 2021.
Oh, fancy.
Yes, it's a little bit more aged than your 2022 bottle. It's New Zealand wine, family owned since 1916 plus. Oh. Yeah, let's have a sip.
Heritage.
13%. You're an 11. Well, at least I'm going to put soda water in.
11.9. Actually, I need the torch on my phone to see exactly what it was because I couldn't really see it. How is it?
It's nice. It is a little, there's a little bit of an after tang that would take some getting used to. It's also warm.
Oh, that's a treat.
So now I'm going to signal my husband and be like, yo,
come collect it
back in the freezer, please.
I actually used the torch on my bottle. It's only 11.5, which is disappointing.
Lightweight.
I know.
So how has your week been, stupid bitch?
Look, it's been nice. The gym, my gym opened up. So Anytime Fitness that I was training at There's 2 locations in the city that both closed a couple of weeks ago and then melded into this one super Anytime Fitness, which is more
Oh,
convenient for me. It's literally just across the road now, in
nice.
Post Office Square. So I got to go back to the gym yesterday for the first time in 3 weeks. That was a bit of a killer. But as I made my way down to the basement to the change rooms under our building,
Hmm.
I was hit in the face by the most putrid fucking smell I have ever smelled in my life. And I've been to Festival Portaloos, man. I have fucking smelled some serious shit. This was the most disgusting, rancid thing I've ever smelled. I felt like I was swimming through sewage. It was that
My
bad. The smell
gosh.
started coming into the office and everything. It was terrible. I met Vinny for a vape
What was the
later.
cause of this
It
dog?
had to be sewage because I know that the building management got plumbers out. It still stank today, but yesterday was fucking ripe. And I got Vinny, went for a vape with Vinny. I said, Vinny, stick your head in the driveway, have a sniff of that. Because we meet at the top of the driveway for a vape. And he's gone in, stuck his head, and he's like, oh, did you fart? I'm like, no, that did not come from my ass. That is about a few hundred people's shit mixed together coming out of the fucking sewage.
Oh, that's
So
nasty.
that sucked. And Easter is upon us.
Oh, I'm glad you brought it up because I was wanting to talk about Easter and how's your week been as well. But go first. What were you going to say about this
Oh,
wonderful holiday that is one of my all-time favorites?
it's a 4-day break, which I'm fucking delighted about.
Oh, I
It hasn't
need
even, I
this.
know it hasn't even really registered with me yet that we've got 4 days off. But yeah, we've got a fun Easter ahead of us. Tomorrow we've got fuck all on, which is great.
I have
Then
nothing on except going to buy seafood.
oh nice. And we've got Shelley.
Oh, she's coming up.
She's coming up from Sydney.
Wonderful.
So we're going out. We promised Matt and Kylie we'd take them out for lunch for their birthdays, which were in January. So we're going to the Manly Boathouse on Saturday, which will be nice. And then Sunday, we're going back to Summer House for a bottomless brunch with Shelley, Lynn, and a few other Irish folk.
Oh my God. That I can't believe you're doing that to yourself. At least you've got Monday to get through it, right?
Exactly. And we have sort of said to each other, let's just not go as hard this time.
Please.
I know. So we're gonna try a new tactic, and we're gonna drink beers this time, and we're gonna do it where Vinny will go up and get 2 beers, then we'll both drink it. Then I'll go up and get 2 beers, and then we'll both drink a beer. So we're gonna try and get one at a time, so they don't end up warm as piss, and hopefully walk away with a memory of walking away.
I'm sorry. I love you both dearly, but that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
We know we're going to make our $65 back. And we're just going to see how it goes.
What? Oh my God. I bet you I get videos.
Scar!
So we didn't stick to our plan. Double bubbles.
Kebab hanging out my mouth.
Yeah.
Vinny
So
will
I'm in the
pass
cab.
out.
Kebab.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to the one across from Rick's this time, though.
Mm. Good reminder. I will, because I want to try that ever since you told us about it.
Oh, it was so, and look, like I said, it could have been out. No, well, remember, because we brought one home for Link, and Link was saying it was the best kebab he's ever had. They did get snack packs though. Actually, maybe I got a kebab and it was amazing.
Yes, no, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so make sure you do that. Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing bottom story. I wonder how many times we're going to get it in before they close up shop.
Or they turn around and say to us, you're no longer welcome. Yeah. Your picture is behind the bar. But what for?
Well, that guy wanted to kick us out. Remember that one?
Oh, that fucking wanker.
He was a dick.
We'll see if he's there again this time. And I'll go, ha, big mistake, bitch. So how about you, darling heart? How has your week been?
Well, since we're talking about Easter, I do have one other thing I want to mention, but we'll talk about Easter first. I'm also incredibly excited about this weekend just because I haven't had a break since Christmas, and
of course,
you know how hard I've been working. And I have absolutely no plans except for a Sunday afternoon at my sister's, which will end up being a day of an afternoon of heavy drinking, as you know, it always does with my family.
And when's that? Saturday?
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday. Right.
So we have the whole weekend of no plans, no nothing.
Oh, I love that for you.
I have already started pulling things out of cupboards. I went and got a whole range of cleaning products yesterday and this morning, ready to deep clean, spring clean this house from top to bottom.
Yeah.
So and tomorrow, because we don't eat meat on Fridays, we always do
Good
that.
Fridays.
So Good Friday. Just one Friday a year, people.
Hey,
Not
look,
every Friday.
at least you're committed to it. I like it.
So we go to the seafood shop in the morning and we'll buy a whole bunch of seafood for throughout the day. And our meals will all revolve around seafood, except for my breakfast eggs, please. I'll still have my breakfast eggs.
Nice.
So excited just to have nothing on and that's why I'm on the soda waters on the wines tonight, because I do not want to wake up with even a sniff of a hangover tomorrow. Because I want to get up early, walk the dog, come back and just start cleaning everything I see. I'm going to be like wiping down walls, and
it's such a satisfying feeling after you've done a big job like that, and then you can sit down and appreciate it.
Yes. And I just want to go into work next week, another short week, just having the house immaculate and smelling beautiful. Because we've had because the dog's inside all the time and everything's been locked up with the air con. It just needs a real, I'm going to take some of the curtains down. I'm going to put them through the wash with smelly stuff.
Give it a good zhuzh.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. But the thing that I did want to mention about my week this week is that after we've been trying to do this for ages, but we brought out the slow cooker. We haven't done that since last winter.
Nice.
But I follow this chick on Instagram and she made, and you will appreciate this, she made kebab meat in the slow cooker, right? And we saw it, how it comes up on your feed. I follow a lot of those food people. I love it.
And you get lost in a hole just grilling through all their shit.
Love it. Same with cleaning ones. I follow heaps of cleaning people and watch their cleaning techniques.
That's surprising. Because I had a Norwex party and you refused to be a part of this Norwex party, which is a cleaning agent party with cloths and shit.
Yes, but
you actually stayed on our balcony the whole time during it. And every time we went in the kitchen when she did a demo, you just gave us death stares through the kitchen
and rolled my eyes. I know, because I hated it. I still don't love it, but I love the satisfaction that comes from having a spotless clean house now.
We've changed.
Whereas I used to have a cleaner, remember, because I was a single mom, and now I just can't,
justify it.
Because we've got such a big house, it would cost a fortune to clean this house. Plus the dog is just, anyway, so we have been wanting to make these kebabs, and basically you just get mince, and you put a whole lot of seasoning in, but it's how you roll it up. So you roll it in alfoil really, really tightly, and Tyler did. I didn't do any of it. I was at work yesterday when he made it, and you roll it up so tightly so the meat gels together almost to make that sort of consistency. It's certainly not in any way
shaved off the
same kind of meat. It's not the kind of, and it's not fatty and all that sort of stuff. And we use full fat mince as well. We use lamb actually. But I tell you what, it came out pretty all right. And it's not, it's almost like making meatballs or rissoles, just chucking everything in. And the hardest part, I guess, is rolling it tightly enough. And when you only put it in the slow cooker for about 4 hours, I think, you don't need anything else. You just put it in the foil and some juice comes out and you sort of put the juice over a little bit to keep it moist. And then Tyler sliced it all up. And we made kebabs with Lebanese bread and put them in the toaster, and with fresh garlic sauce, homemade garlic sauce.
Oh, nice.
Was delicious.
Good.
Strongly suggest that you try it, and listeners,
give it a crack.
If you want the recipe, hit me up.
And make sure you use the code SBSW for 50% off. We don't actually have a slow cooker.
Oh, you don't? Okay. No, well, you've got the Thermomix. Thermomix will do it, won't it? Same thing. Maybe, but because of the blade and shit, I guess you could put the blade guard on. But we got rid of a lot of that stuff that just took up too much bulky room because we just don't have the space. Yeah, it's the same with our air fryer, because I ended up giving your air fryer that you gave me to Sarah and Aaron because they've got a way bigger kitchen than us. And we went and brought a square one, and and then I had to sacrifice my bench space and put it on the bench because it's too big to put in the cupboards.
Yeah, well, that's what we had to do. We had to take a shelf out of the cupboard to store it, and it just took up the whole fucking area, and it was just too much.
But I really can't live without an air fryer though. Like we went for about 2 years after we moved up here, but a year and a half, and now we've got it back. We use it like,
All the
most
time.
days. Yeah.
Oh, good. Very
But
good.
yeah, but that's my week.
Good.
So shall we kick it off? You go first,
Let's
I
kick
think.
it off. So we do have a little bit of a formula that we're going to go through tonight. So first of all, we're going to go, as we're back in time in the 80s. Far out, dude. Totally tubular. Or is that 90s? But either way,
No,
we're going to talk.
That's 80s.
Oh,
Teenage
good.
Mutant Ninja Turtles, Cowabunga dudes.
Oh, yeah, they were like late 80s, weren't they?
Even
So
earlier 80s, I think.
we've done 80s cartoons as a previous episode. So we decided we're not going to do that, but we are going to discuss, first off, some of our favorite 80s movies. And my first one is Goonies.
Oh,
Have you seen
one.
it?
Oh, of course, please.
Well, look, you just never know these days.
Goonies never die, please.
Goonies never die. I was obsessed with this movie and could still watch it today. No problems.
Yep.
It was actually based on a book by Steven Spielberg, which I didn't know about until I did the research. Yeah.
He made it though, didn't he? He was
yes, he did direct it as well. So The Goonies is a classic adventure comedy film from the 80s, directed by Richard Donner and produced by Steven Spielberg. It tells the story of a group of misfit kids just down on their luck who go on a treasure hunt to save their homes from foreclosure. While The Goonies was actually not a commercial success. While The Goonies was not as commercially successful as some of the other blockbuster movies of the 80s, it has since become a cult classic and is highly regarded as one of the defining movies of the decade.
Without a doubt.
Hashtag agreed. So the movie grossed over 61 million at the box office worldwide, which was a solid performance at the time. However, it was not in the same league as other 80s blockbusters like E.T. and Back to the Future. So despite its moderate commercial success, The Goonies has remained a beloved classic over the years, with its sense of adventure, memorable characters, and timeless themes of friendship and perseverance resonating with audiences of all ages. So my brother Teddy and I used to always do sloth impersonations all the time. Do you remember Sloth? Hey, you guys. And I fucking loved Chunk. Do you remember Chunk?
The red-headed one, yeah.
Oh, he was the little chubby one with the curly hair.
Yeah.
I thought he was hilarious with the truffle shuffle. You can't come in until you do the truffle shuffle. His interactions with the Fratellis, who were the family of the bad guys that wanted the treasure for themselves when they found out about the fact that it existed. And I remember when they were sort of in the Fratellis' basement exploring, trying to find the tunnel that opened up to where the treasure map started from. And he's walking around, they're all like trying to find the hole and shit. He's like, I smell ice cream. And then he goes into the freezer and he's like, fucking hell. Oh, guys, I got Rocky Road, Chocolate Ripple, and then the dead body falls on him. It's a stiff. And he runs out screaming. He fucking made me wet myself. And there's actually a little, and I'm only thinking about this now, but there's actually a little universal crossover with the Goonies and Gremlins at the time, because when Chunk, I think, calls up the cop and he's talking a bit to the cop about, like, we're in this basement and all this shit's going on, rah, rah, rah. And the cop goes, yeah. It's just like that time when they called me up and all these little green gremlins were meant to be running around the place and yada, yada. So, and it's the same cop that was in the Gremlins. I'm actually getting total Goonie vibes and I want to watch it again.
Well, I haven't seen it since Link was little. That was the last time I watched it and I put it on. I actually think we might have went to some like outdoor cinema or one of those things that was screening it, like some kids event, and watched
little
it.
Pop-up for it. And
then I remember watching it with the kids because Link was obsessed with it after that, and we watched it a couple of times, but when he was little. So I don't remember loads about it, not the way that you clearly do. I remember bits and pieces, but
well, remember One-Eyed Willie, the pirate whose treasure they were going for, and One-Eyed Willie, It's a penis, people. Anyway, the whole treasure hunt vibe and deciphering clues on the map and the little puzzles and challenges that they had to complete to get to the next part of the hunt was right up my street as a kid. And now, really, it's like an escape room. And of course, it brought us the Cyndi Lauper classic, Good Enough for You, It's Good Enough.
You mentioned the Goonies when I did Cyndi Lauper that time. If
Yes,
you remember.
I remember. Yeah, there's a few things in this that actually cross over to a few episodes.
Oh, well, I was thinking myself when I was doing my notes, I was like, shit, I think we've spoke. There was a couple of things that I wrote down. I was like, I know I've spoken about this before. I can't use this.
Yeah, well, I've still got my parts in there, even though I've mentioned it before, and I think especially in the next movie I've got. But so many stars actually came from the Goonies, or were around, may have had a couple of movies before it, but actually are still big names today. So we've got Sean Astin, who was the lead as Mikey. He looks nothing like he does now, and he's had quite a strong career since, with a load of TV appearances.
Encino Man Plus.
Encino Man, and movies such as Toy Soldiers. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Lord of the Rings, and more recently Stranger Things.
Quite a short man.
He was a hobbit. And more recently Stranger Things, where he was were known as love interest.
Such a great character in Stranger Things. I loved him.
And then he died.
So
Josh Brolin, who was Mikey's older brother, Brand.
And
he was such a heartthrob for me in the movie when I was a kid. I was like, oh my God, he's hot. And he still has a bit of daddy vibes going on these days too. He's also had a pretty successful career with TV's appearances in movies, most notably as Thanos in the Avenger movies now. Corey Feldman.
He's also Barbara Streisand's son-in-law.
Is he?
Yeah.
Ah.
So, because she's married. I'm not certain if they ended up getting married to James Brolin. So that's his dad.
Oh.
And that's Barbara Streisand's long time. I'm not sure if they ever got married. I think they did.
But relatives
But they were together for years and years. So she's not his mum. She's his stepmother.
Wow.
Yeah. So stepson, sorry.
Yeah.
Son-in-law, stepson.
Yeah. Oh, that's still a good fucking claim. Corey Feldman, of course, who played Mouth.
Of course, yes.
He was a pretty big regular in movies after that. Stand By Me, Lost Boys, big name, but mainly based off his big name these days, but mainly based off his childhood stardom, I think. Like he's not really got super much going on for him. Ki Hu Kwan, who played Data. Do you remember Data with this little inventions and shit? He was also in Indiana Jones Temple of Doom as Short Round.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, which was before Goonies, but he also had a steady career since. And he recently won the Oscar this year for Best Supporting Actor for his role in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
I haven't seen that. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it either, but I've heard, like, obviously it swept the Oscars, and so it must be good. But I went to put it on once, but Vinny wasn't sort of buying it.
I think it's very sci-fi, like
which I don't mind. It's meant to be like
and stuff like that.
It's superhero-y type, which I'm okay with. And then this bird, Martha Plimpton.
Oh yeah, I know Martha Plimpton.
I fucking remember, like, when I looked at her and when I see her in this movie, I don't know what it was, but as a kid, I fucking loved that chick. I thought she was badass in the Goonies. She was pretty much an independent, strong woman and all that shit. She wasn't all about.
She was in Parenthood too, the movie, which I love, with Steve Martin. She shaves her head. She goes out with Keanu Reeves.
I've got that too. I loved her character. She was also in the movie Parenthood, which I was super excited about when I was watching the movie and I saw her in. But yeah, I loved Parenthood too. Haven't seen that for fucking decades.
Great movie. Say. And that's based on the show. Like, they made Parenthood the show.
TV show.
But it was loosely based on the concept, I think.
Yeah. I didn't see any of the show, did you?
I love the show. Show was excellent.
The TV show, really?
Yeah, but it was drama, not comedy.
Right. But yeah, no, I need to watch that Parenthood. And she went on to also...
your kind of show.
Huh?
I don't know if it's your kind of show.
Oh, the TV show. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say the TV show or rewatch the movie?
I meant the movie.
Oh,
I loved the movie.
I've seen the movie a bunch of times. It used to be one of my all-time favorite comfort
movies
when I was a lot younger. I used to love it.
Yeah, me too. When it came on TV, it was always must watch.
Because remember the guy out of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and he goes out with the sister, and she's the blonde one, and they've got the little smart chicken. She decides to leave him, and then he sings the Carpenter song in her classroom at the end.
Is that in
Why
Parenthood?
do birds suddenly
appeared. That's when I
appear
fell in love with the
every
Carpenters.
time
You
you
are
are near? And she's like,
Yeah.
why are you here? No, you need to leave. And then he just keeps singing, and they fall back in love.
My God, I forgot all about that. And that's when I
Love that
discovered the
movie.
Carpenters. Yeah. And she was also the mum in Raising Hope, the TV series.
Yes, yeah. The old TV series from years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, that's my first movie. What's yours?
Okay, all right. So it's really hard. I had a few here, but like I said, I was a bit worried about what would cross over from previous episodes that I talked about, and I couldn't really remember. Anyway, so what I'm going to go with is, first of all, Field of Dreams.
Oh, good choice. Was that the 80s, was it?
It was, I think it must have been 89 or maybe 87 or something.
Yeah.
So a bit of trivia. I was one of those people who'd never actually seen the film, right?
Yeah.
So we have, we have this list of movies that every time I see a movie that potentially the both of us would like, I put it on a list.
Yeah.
And it had been on the list for a little while because it's a movie that I didn't intentionally not see. You know how sometimes you just never see a film and everybody's seen it but you just miss the boat, and then you just never get around to watching it on your own. Yeah. So it was one of those movies for me. And so it was like, what's the Tom Cruise one? What's the one? They just brought the one out with the fighter pilots.
Oh, Top Gun.
Top Gun. I never saw Top Gun until I moved to the Central Coast.
Oh, wow.
Another one, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, it doesn't age well.
No, I didn't like it at all. I can't stand Tom Cruise, though, you know that. Anyway, so we put it on probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and because we're such massive Kevin Costner fans, and even before Yellowstone, I was a huge Kevin Costner fan.
Dances with Wolves, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Of course, so many good ones.
Yeah.
So we put it on, not really knowing what to expect, and I must say, in the beginning, it's quite. Can I push through this or not? Because it's like, have you seen it? Have you haven't seen it recently?
No, I saw it back when it came out.
So it's almost like the first, 10 minutes or so, he, I think I can't really remember exactly now, but I think something happens and a light switches on him or something. And the ghosts don't start actually appearing until maybe 20, 30 minutes into the film. And then that's right. He hears the voice first.
If you build it,
voice,
they will come.
If you build it. But at first I think it's just like he hears like a noise, like it's a radio or something. Right. And then he hears that if you build it, they will come. And he tells the wife, and the wife's like, you've lost your marbles. And they're like, on the bones of their ass. They've moved to start farming. They know nothing about farming. They sold everything that they had to buy this farm because they wanted a different way of life for their kids. And she believes in him straight up, even though he sounds like he's stark raving mad. And she's really cool. She's also in Uncle Buck. And I can't think of her name right now, but she's very cool in it. Anyway, so she's the wife, and they've got little kids and stuff. And anyway, so everyone already thinks they're crazy because they've moved to this small town and they're farmers and they don't know anything about farming. And I think it's her brother-in-law, because I think that's where she's from. And her brother-in-law wants to buy their farm off them, and he's really rich and works for a bank and stuff like that, and they want to foreclose, and he's like, no, I'm not going to sell it. And then he basically to build this baseball field, and everyone thinks he's insane, and all the farmers like, you've lost the plot, man. And then as soon as he builds it, just from hearing the voice, the first baseball player comes to see him, and then he gets more, and then he goes on this search for all the other baseball players, not knowing where he's going. He just follows signs, like these little tidbits of signs. And it starts off being so far-fetched that you're like, how do they even get this to be a movie? Like, how did someone actually go, I'm going to make this movie? But I ended up ugly crying at the end so hard that I was inconsolable, and I said to Doug, I love this movie so much. And Kevin Costner in it is such a baby and is like the hottest man you've ever seen in your life. You're just like the whole time going, I
totally would.
He was just
hot in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Gorgeous specimen of a man.
Yeah, actually, I think if Vinny hasn't seen it, I think it'd be a movie that Vinny would actually quite enjoy.
But you've got to give it a good half an hour, maybe even 40 minutes, because it is to the point. Because I remember thinking the whole time, this isn't believable. I don't understand how he's got buy-in from people who love him, because it's an insane idea that
Concept.
came out of nowhere. Like, I'd be like, babe, we got kids. Come on. I know you love your sport.
You go to sleep now. You just go to sleep right here.
But you're not using our land to build a baseball field.
Because
where,
he mows down the cornfields or
yeah,
wheat or
and they
whatever
can't
it
make
is,
any
doesn't he?
stock, so they end
Yeah.
up like having like a tiny little bit of their property that they can actually make the wheat or whatever they're growing on it. And so they're losing money. Like, already they're in debt when he decides to do it.
Yeah.
And then it just gets worse to the banks and completely knocking on their door. And he's traveling for his fucking baseball team. She's got these bankers going, I'm gonna take your house. And he's like, babe, just give me like a little bit more time.
And it's in 6 more months and 17 baseball players, and we're set.
Yeah. But some of the people that he meets along the way are like people, and they're all ones who almost had their shot, but for whatever reason got an injury or died young or got in trouble with the law, or all these tragedies befell them. So they never really got their proper shot in the big leagues. And then he brings them on. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's such a heartbreaking film. Like, I can see why it also has a cult following, and why it won. I think it won a few awards back in the day as well, like, or at least massive nominations.
Yeah.
But very much a concept that you're like, how does this even work? How did someone such a great movie?
This? Yeah. And then I'll get it. So it was pretty much probably the same thing for the person who wrote the screenplay and had the idea, trying to get everyone on board to do it. Like Kevin Costner had to try and get everyone on board with his shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the end, they came.
But such a good film. Like, honestly, I was like, I'm so glad I waited till I was an adult to see it. I don't know that I would have appreciated it when I was younger either. I would have been like, it's okay. Well, it's just a bunch of ghosts.
I think I saw it like in 1990 when it came out on VHS or whatever, like, right after it was in the cinemas and shit. And I remember watching it with Dad and Pat, and I, quite enjoyed it too as a child, but I guess that's just because of all the feels and shit like that you get out of it. I remember at the end, like the ghosts all then turning and walking into the cornfields at the end, and then there just being a string of cars.
Oh, and what's his name's in it? James Earl Jones. Oh,
I thought it was Morgan Freeman, but
James Earl Jones. What that's a cool drink of water he is, mate. I'll tell you what, I'd give him one as well.
Tall glass of water. Would you really? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I love an old man.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd let him get on top of me.
Oh, yeah, I would. Shiz. And they end up taking him with them because his career ended up being like where he was super jaded. Something happened. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he ended up. So in the end, Kevin Costner's character goes to find him because he's been pointed towards him, and they hate each other and they argue and argue and argue. And James Earl Jones refused to buy in, but then something happens, and then he sort of feels like gets a vibe all of a sudden. So then he's invested in them. By the time he gets back to the farm, and then he can see them, and he's the only other one. So the little girls can see them, his wife can see them, but all the bankers and stuff can't, like, so I guess cynical people can't see them, I guess.
The people who believe see them.
And so then when people start to come, then they see them, but there's lots of people who can't see them in the beginning, and then I guess once it builds, other people, because it's not really like well thought out in terms of believability.
Plot lines.
But then they all go, come with me. And then Kevin Costner sort of stood there going, but I want to go and see what's back there. Why can't I go? And James Earl Jones is like, you're not invited, mate.
Yeah.
You needed
Wait your time.
Yeah, you're not. And because he's old and his life's over and he's just ready to go pass be on. A ghost, if that's what it means. Like,
pass into the next world.
It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful film. I love it so much.
Yeah, no, I do remember, as I said, even as a kid, feeling all the feels for it, but I was a sensitive child as well,
You were. All right, your turn. What's next?
Okay, so I'd mentioned this in my previous topic, but the next one is E.T. And again, I think we've done this because I think you were very scared of E.T., were you?
Yes, we did do it. We did things that scare you. And yes, I was terrified of E.T., terrified.
So E.T., aka the extraterrestrial, is
Oh,
a classic science fiction movie, also directed by Steven Spielberg and was released in 1982. The movie tells the story of a young boy named Elliot who befriends an alien who is stranded on Earth and trying to return home. Elliot. The film stars Henry Thomas as Elliot and features a memorable performance by a puppet version of the alien E.T. It
Can I
also
say one thing
stars,
really quickly?
of course,
Have you watched any of The Haunting of Hill House?
yeah, I've seen them all.
Oh yeah, because you know Henry Thomas is the dad.
Yes, yes, yes. Now that you've said it, now I realise. Yeah, Haunting
Yeah.
of Hill House is great. That's the
Oh,
first one, isn't it?
that's the first one.
Blind Manor's the second
The
one.
second one's very good too, but
Not as good.
different.
Yeah.
And a bit more like head fuck than the first. The first one's traditional ghost story,
Yes.
like
When that fucking kid hides under the bed and the ghost comes in with the walking stick and the crooked neck lady. Fuck me. That was a revelation, that episode, wasn't it?
it was
It's
so
just like,
messed up. It
whoa.
was, and even like when she becomes like the the mortuary, like she's the people who prepares the dead and stuff like that. After all they'd been through, she
Yeah.
runs a funeral home. Like,
Yeah.
are you fucking serious?
Have you not seen enough dead people?
Such a good show. Love
Such
it.
a good show. But yeah, it also stars a fave of both of ours, Drew Barrymore, please. But she was just Say It Sky.
It's funny that you say this because
What was
something
she
came
though?
up.
When
Who?
she starred in E.T., Drew Barrymore, she was
Just
just
a baby.
a baby.
Just a tiny baby. And she
Yeah.
was being interviewed the other day. Something came up on my feed, and she was 6, right? She's sitting on the couch. I can't remember who was interviewing. It was one of those talk shows. And she's speaking so eloquently like an adult about how they must have asked her like how she got the part in ET, and she was like, well, you know, and talking to a little baby voice, but talking like an adult.
Yeah.
Like I got interviewed
With a little lisp as well, wasn't she?
For they made me screen test for the poltergeist girl, and then they said to me, the people who were casting, she says all their names, like she knows all their names and stuff. She still like, you know, talks about them like first and surname, and they talked to me and my agent, and they said, no, you're not suitable for this. You're not quite the part. The part's not written for you, but you are written for the part of ET. And so anyway, that's how I got the part of ET.
Yeah.
And she's just adorable and
Yes.
just speaks like a little add-on. It's just like, I love it.
I think I remember something about when Steven Spielberg was talking about when she screen tested for ET after obviously that recommendation. And they were like, yep, straight up, she's in. Yeah.
Yeah. And then look at her now.
I know. But yeah, she was such a cutie in that movie too. The movie was a critical and commercial success, grossing over 700 million worldwide.
Jesus, that's so much for the 80s, isn't it?
82 compared to the 60 million worldwide for Goonies. And it also has become a cultural touchstone for generations of moviegoers. Some of the most notable scenes for the movie is iconic, including Elliot and E.T. flying on the bicycle against the full moon.
With the red, the hoodie on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And okay.
I was going to say, as much as you're saying it grossed 700 million, I would actually say Goonies is probably more popular in this day and age than what ET is now.
It's probably got more longevity in it too. Yeah.
I think more kids of this demographic, or you know, younger in the last 5 to 10 years, have probably seen
would appreciate Goonies more.
E.T.
Yeah. And the famous moment when E.T. communicates with his home planet through a speak and spell toy. And his big, long, glowy finger, E.T. phone home.
E.T. phone home.
And just remember when he eats something, he's like, yum.
He scared me. I was terrified of him. I did not find him cute.
Do you remember they dressed him up in the blonde wig and shit like that in the handbag?
And he pops out. That scared the fuck out of me. I was like,
get him off. So the film's score, the music was also considered iconic and memorable. So the movie was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and won 4, including Best Original Score, Sound Effects, Sound Mixing, and Visual Effects.
I wonder if the sound effects held up to this day, though.
Yeah, yeah, be
Because I haven't
interesting.
seen it. It's in so like I don't think I've actually really seen the whole thing from beginning to end, to be quite honest with you.
Erica Elniak's in it
Terrified.
too. She's so you
Oh,
there
Baywatch
was
chick.
yeah, when they had the frog scene in the
I know
school
who she
where I
is.
think ET sees something come back to life and the powers go through Elliot somehow and all the frogs they're about to dissect all come back to life in the classroom and jump around
Oh,
and
I don't
she's in
remember
that
that.
screaming.
Oh,
But back in the day, dear listeners, before video rentals, massive movies like this would have runs at the cinema, kind of like how
for
theatre productions
years.
run today. And I remember going to see E.T. at the cinema with my bros during the school holidays in 84 or 85 and absolutely fucking loved it. It's great.
I was 4 and 84.
You were. I was 7. I wasn't a
Way older.
teenager.
Are you sure?
But back then, again, it was the 80s. And so, say I was 7, my older brother was 14. Stuart would have been 12, and we were all left to go into the city, the three of us,
Yeah.
babysitting their fucking 7-year-old child, brother to go to the movies during the school holidays
In
and then get
daylight
on the
hours,
bus
though.
and go back home to the Redlands. Different time.
Different times.
All right, that's my second movie. What's yours, please? Pancake flipper.
Beetlejuice.
Is that an 80s movie?
It is.
You decide out of Big or
What's the song?
Beetlejuice.
What's the song that they do? Because it's also got the chick out of
Dale,
Schitt's Creek.
Dale.
Dale.
Daylight
Daylight
come and me wanna go home.
And remember the little heads?
Hey,
that they
Mr.
had?
Daily Man. Yeah, the shrunken heads. And they're doing a sequel to Beetlejuice.
Oh, are they?
Yes, and
Same
Winona
with
Ryder's in it. And Wednesday from the new Wednesday series is playing the daughter of Winona Ryder.
Oh, right. Same with Death Becomes Her. They're redoing Death Becomes Her.
Well, this is the sequel, this one, and it's got Michael Keaton's in it and Johnny Depp's in it too as another character.
Right.
Mm.
Okay.
Maybe you
Love
should do Beetlejuice then.
Yeah, I love Beetlejuice. Well, just more about the fact that it was an 80s film and Winona Ryder was in it. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it had that song in it.
Dale. And the mother from Schitt's Creek, you're right. She was the mother, and they're all at the dinner table when that song came on, and they're like, Dale. And they can't control themselves.
Yeah.
Zibede.
Oh, and what's her name? Is in it the one out of Long Kiss Goodnight. Gina Davis. Yeah.
Beetlejuice.
And it's
and who's the guy?
Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, yes.
Yeah. And I'm not a fan of him.
Oh, well, especially not now.
No. But he was quite young and good looking in that.
Yeah. But Gina Davis, what an icon.
Oh, totally love her. But yeah, Michael Keaton, what an icon. And anyway, let's move on to the next topic.
So the next topic is 80s music. So my first feature for this is the Bangles.
Oh, love.
I loved this all-girl pop rock band. Say my name. Sunshines in the rain.
And just a Magic Monday, I still
it's not like, just a Magic Monday.
I mean Monday Magic. I mean
it's not Monday Magic. It's just Manic Monday.
Manic Monday.
It's just another Manic Monday.
Sometimes when I'm having a shit day, like if it's the beginning of the week and I don't want to, like, I can't deal with the week, I actually put that song on just because it makes me feel good. I swear, even to this day, like I do. I put it on and be like, it lifts my spirits, that song. Always lifts my spirits. I'm like, it's just Magic Manic Monday.
You know what I mean? Bitch. But yeah, no, I love this all-girl pop rock band. And I remember there was, so it would have been 88, 87 when my brothers got, or maybe even 86 actually, when they came out. My brothers got a Walkman for Christmas, but I was too young. I didn't get the Walkman.
Oh, I remember those days.
They got a hits, one of those, whatever hits compilation tapes, and it had fucking Manic Monday by the Bangles on it. And that's when I was like, oh my God, that's when I knew I loved girl singers. And I didn't love girls' vaginas. But they had massive hits in the decade with their breakthrough hit Manic Monday, dominating the charts, but it only actually made it to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. But do you know that song was actually written by Prince?
That doesn't surprise me, actually. He
Doesn't
wrote
surprise
heaps of
me.
songs, heaps and heaps and heaps.
He did. I didn't know that. So they also graced our ears with other smash hits such as
Walk like an Egyptian.
dun, 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 dun.
Eh-oh, eh-oh,
Look
eh-oh,
like an Egyptian.
eh-oh.
Yeah, away, away, oh. In Your Room and Eternal Flame, which also topped the charts in several
That
countries. Eternal
eternal
flame, close your
do you feel?
feel the same. Fun fact, after disbanding in 1989, so they had a 3-year career, the Bangles reunited in 1998 and have continued to tour and record. And I would fucking love to see them perform.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a
They're,
doubt.
they're inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 2000 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020. The
Hearing Manic Monday live at a festival at like one of those 80s summertime things, you know, those ones that they do where they come sometimes to Australia and they do all the old bands.
Yes.
Like, imagine how insane that would be.
100%. I would love it. I would love it. All right, that's my first one. Who's your first?
Okay. All right. So mine is I've got two sensational ones that are just going to rock you.
Can't wait.
But it was funny because I was searching 80s music and I was thinking about some of the stuff that we consistently speak about that we love on this podcast. And I was trying to think of something random that I hadn't spoken about before.
Oh, do you have one?
And yes, I had this flashback, right?
I love this.
So I have to tell the story of it. So it is, it's an album. Well, Culture Club, Karma Chameleon.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to tell you this funny story though. When I was, so I must have been in grade 2, I think grade 1 or grade 2. Anyway, so I went into school. I was at Killarney Vale Public School back in the day, and I was obsessed. And my auntie had got me into Culture Club, specifically Boy George. I was obsessed with him, and I can't even remember what it was specifically that made me so obsessed. But the fact that he wore makeup and had that feminine aspect and dressed in, you know, types of women clothes, and he didn't in like the way sometimes we're used to it now, like in a drag or anything. It was more that he wore jewelry and makeup and had longer hair and had, you know, high necks and
it was also like back in that
feminine
era too,
clothes,
where
80s clothes,
but also glam, even glam rock was a huge thing. So all these super straighty 180 hetero men were worshipping people like fucking Guns N' Roses, who were like
David Bowie
with massive hair and fucking tight skin tight leather and makeup and shit.
But look, to this day, I can't remember if he was openly gay back then or not. If
I think it was just assumed.
Yes, I think it was. But I feel like people, regardless, or maybe it was just the stereotypical, he dresses a certain way and obviously, you know, he's into men. But I remember for show and tell.
Don't ask, don't tell. Yeah.
Yeah. And for show and tell, it was either grade 1 or grade 2. I took the record to school because mum really liked him too. And my auntie really liked him. And so I took the record to school and I was really excited because I really loved Culture Club. I really loved Boy George. And I would listen to it over and over and I'd be like, Mom, play the song again. I just love it. I was like a tiny little kid. Anyway, so I went to show and tell. I held up the record and I was like, you know, this is my favorite album. This is my show and tell because my mum and my auntie are really into it and I really love it. And these are my favorite songs and blah, blah, blah. And I remember all the boys giving me so much shit and being like, he's super gay and dresses like a woman, like you're into men who are women, and just totally teasing the shit out of me. And I remember
the times
coming home from school in tears being like, Mom, and I had no idea in my sheltered little life that anyone was thinking those things. Like, to me, I just thought his music was amazing and I was just like totally into the way that he dressed and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Cool.
I was like, a man who wears beaded necklaces, this is
eyeliner,
like the coolest thing ever. And when I presented it, they were all like,
and that's all.
And I remember even the teachers just looking at me going,
because it's just such a different, it was a different time. But that's fucked, isn't it though? Because now totally it'd be celebrated and everything. No one would actually give a shit these days. Well, most people.
I think back now, and I've been thinking about it all this week since I looked it up and I had that flashback of a memory. I think that was the first time that I came up against a level of prejudice
Yeah.
in my life where I was like in complete shock, where I was like, I don't understand what's happening right now.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't understand why I'm getting all this like,
Yeah, because
you
the
know,
innocence of non-judgment is
negative energy
confronted
towards
with
me.
that. Yeah, it's fucked up.
Why doesn't everybody love Boy George like me?
Hello. Yeah.
So, whilst it might not be the most popular album of the 80s, it has those memories for me
definitely.
where I was just like walking with my, and it was a big record too. I was like walking with my record. Boy
Yeah.
George is like, it's his whole face is on the cover.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is my show and tell, guys. And everyone's like, boo.
Boo, get her off. But no, you're right. He is
my
actually
little blonde pigtails.
he is iconic when it comes to the 80s. He was
Mm,
definitely an icon. Like that's how he's really survived today,
yeah.
is through his iconic history from what he did in the 80s.
Yeah, and if you think about one of my all-time favorite films, The Wedding Singer. So, what I can't even think. It was not Alexis Arquette.
Yes.
Who has now passed on as well. You
Yeah.
know, she's deceased now, but in The Wedding Singer, such a great part, and sings all the Boy George songs, and they're always like,
I
you know,
remember that now. Yeah.
you know, they're like, and every time there's like a lull.
Yeah.
It's
What
like,
does it,
and I can't
how
remember
does
her
it
name
start?
in it.
How does the song start,
Come,
though?
chameleon.
Yeah, but it always would start with
the slow bit,
yeah.
Give me time
Give me time to yeah.
be myself.
Yes, it would always start like
super so come a chameleon, which is like, if you think about the lyrics, it's just like
yeah, karma chameleon.
Come a chameleon, like, you know, they're just changing and just molding in where they have to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my first one.
Oh. So I feel that there is no way we could do this topic for me and not pay homage to Roxette, please.
Of course.
The Swedish pop rock duo consisting of Marie Fredriksson, may she rest in paradise, and Per Gessle. They formed in 1986 and became one of the most successful international acts of the 80s and early 90s, and also 2000s and 2010s, but focusing just on the 80s, however.
And they really came to us through Pretty Woman now, didn't they? Is that how they debuted?
No. So that was when they really sort of probably broke into fucking everyone's lives with Must Have Been Love. What was
their first song?
Well, they had an album before their first breakout. I think it's called Pearls of Passion, but nothing actually came from that. But they released a string of hit singles that topped the charts in many countries. Their breakthrough single was Shana na 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 na. She's got the look, which was in 1989, and from their Look Sharp album.
Oh, Look Sharp. Yeah, that was the one, wasn't it?
That was their second album, but that was their breakthrough. And it became a #1 hit in many countries, The Look. And they followed this up with other hits such as I'm Gonna Get Dressed for Success. Listen to Your Heart and Dangerous were all off that album. Listen to Your Heart and Hold On Tight. You know she's a little bit dangerous. And then they continued on with other strong Make Ends Meet.
I had that album on vinyl, by the way. I got it for Christmas in 88, I'm pretty sure.
Damn you. I've been trying to find that on vinyl with my gift vouchers for my birthdays, and I cannot find any Roxette albums.
You're going to have to buy it from a vintage wholesaler somewhere.
Yeah, scroll through.
But yeah, that's probably your best way to find it. But I had that album. I remember for Christmas one year, I got that album and I got Smash Hits, which had
the Bangles.
It had and it
Must
had
Have Been Love.
It had Alice Cooper. Poison, which I was obsessed with.
What an era. Yeah, me too. Do you remember you'd sit down in front of the TV with your video recorder, and you'd hit record when it became your favorite song, then you'd pause it, Blondie's fucking Here Comes the 21st Century.
And cutting out the ads, and every time my parents walked into my room, get out! I'm trying to cut through the ads! You just messed up my mixtape!
That's right. When you were a kid too, your room was your
Yeah.
domain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do not
And I was
enter.
like, I just wanted a lock on my door. And they'd be like, you never have a lock on this door. This is our house.
Yeah.
You would never have a lock. And I was like,
As
but
long
you
as you live under
always
my roof, you obey by
interrupt
my
me
rules.
and you come in and Sarah comes in all the time and I just want to be by myself.
God, guys.
I was awful. I was super awful.
We all were at that age. But yes, I love them as much today as much as I loved them back then. Who's your next highlight?
Okay, so my next one is the album that literally changed my life, which I didn't actually come to until the 90s. But it was released in 1983.
Oh.
Are you ready for this?
I am. Are you ready for this?
Why can't I get just one kiss? Why can't I get just one kiss?
Yeah.
Maybe I know what to miss and some no mimic. Oh no, I'm mixing
Why
the.
can't I get just one screw? Why can't I
get just one screw? Baby, I know what to do, but some will make love to you.
Who was this again?
Violet Femmes, baby.
See.
And how many songs on that album are to this day still epic?
I remember the song, but I was more of a ballad queen as a child. Debbie Gibson.
Violet Femmes are still one of my favorite bands of all time. I've seen them live probably 4-5 times, twice when it was just their show. And I went to see them just when they were headlining, and then 2 times at least at festivals that I've seen them. Every time, absolutely murder it. But that album, which I came to in the 90s, mid-90s, I think, was when with the girl on the front, the little girl pushing the door. Self-titled. Violet Femmes' self-titled album.
Violet
by Femmes. The Violet Femmes. Best album ever. Every single song on that album is insane. Like, I love it so much.
Oh, good. I'll have to take your word for it because I didn't really get into the rock of the 80s. I didn't really got into
really rock though.
Well, it's kind of punk, isn't it?
Slow. It's a bit punky. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit punky.
Yeah, that kind of took me to the 90s to get into that stuff, and that my hardest was John Bon Jovi. And
well, that's what I mean. Like, I didn't get into it to the 90s, but it is an 83 album.
Yeah.
And it so has kept up, like, considering that people know the words to that song to this day. You put it on in the pubs, and everyone's like screams out the words, no matter where you are. I
do remember being at the Alex and that song coming on and everyone going sick in the late 90s. Well, mid 90s.
And to this day, please. And to this day.
Yeah, I haven't been to any pubs where that's been played, but that's probably just my demographic of pubs these days.
You're much older than me. That's
much
why.
Older, much.
much. So much older. When are you 50 again? How many years?
3 years before you. The 1980s were a decade of diverse music with many memorable and influential songs, as we've gone through, that are still popular today. Some of the biggest songs of the 80s, I'm going to go through a couple and then you chime in. I wake up in the middle of the night. My mama said, when you're gonna live your life right. Oh, mama did.
I didn't want to do her because we'd already done her before in a whole segment.
We did.
Just purely dedicated to the legend that is Cyndi Lauper.
Cyndi Lauper. Guns N' Roses came out in the 80s. Sweet Child of Mine was one of their biggest hits.
November Rain, plus.
That was definitely the 90s.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I was in high school at that stage, which was the 90s. Thank you.
Of course you were.
How about this one? Wake me up before you go. Leave me hanging on like a yo-yo.
Rest in peace, brother. Rest in
peace. Do you have any? Do you want me to just keep listening, or do you?
I was gonna do Wilson Phillips. Hold on for one more day. I know that there is change.
If you hold on for one more day, break free from the chain. I know that there is pain.
Hold on for one more day and break free right from the chain.
So one of the chicks from that,
gonna make you
want to turn around and say goodbye. Say goodbye to them, baby. One of the chicks from that is the daughter of Brian Phillips, who was
I
from the
know.
Beach
From the
Boys.
Beach Boys. Yes, I
But
know.
yes, that was from a movie too, wasn't it? Not Bridesmaids, something else.
She was in Bridesmaids, yes.
But it was in something
I
else.
mean, it was in Bridesmaids. No, I don't know that it was the original one.
Was it just a major fucking corker of a song?
Major hit. Major hit, was everywhere. It was just like a huge hit for yonks, especially for girls.
Yes, well, and me.
Yeah.
I remember we used to belt it out in fucking
Hold
green
on
trees.
for one more day.
I know that there is shame. Another one which we covered recently. Don't stop believing.
Journey, original.
Yes, OG. How about this corker? We are the world.
Oh,
We are the children. How much of a fucking iconic 80s song was that? Brighter days, so let's start living. Let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. Do you remember when that song came out and they had a whole TV special about the filming of the clip? Fuck me, I just remembered that. It still stands out in my mind.
It was Band-Aid, wasn't it? It was like
No, Band-Aid was
the Christmas one, but didn't they do another one as well?
No, this was in the same vein as Band-Aid, Feed the World, Make It a Better Place.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's Heal the World. We are the world, make it a better place. What was the Band-Aid one?
It was like a group of celebrities who came together, and it was for charity to give money for Africa for starving kids. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it was.
Which is why I thought it was Band-Aid as well, but yeah.
No, Band-Aid was through Bob Geldof in the UK. So this was a US version.
Yeah.
World. USA for Africa. That's what it was.
Can I do one?
Yes.
All that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, but all that she wants is another baby.
So they formed in 1990, FYI.
Oh, Ace of Base wasn't 80s.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of songs too. It was really hard because lots of the stuff that I thought was 80s was actually 90s, because I wanted to do Meatloaf's
I won't
do that. I love that song, but it's 90s. I looked it up.
Maybe we'll have to do a 90s music episode. How about this one? The only way is up, baby, for you and me now. Yaz and the Plastic Population. That has a bit of, like, now that you're looking at the plastic population, I thought she just meant mannequins, but I guess she means the whole fucking everyone's plastic and fake. Carly and Jason, especially for you.
I want to tell
you all that I've been going through. But it also gave us artists: Madonna, Bon Jovi, Queen, Milli Vanilli, Debbie Gibson.
They got their Grammy taken off them.
They did, and rightly so. Okay, so as we touched on in our introduction, it was the 80s. It was a different time. So let's talk about how different a time it actually was, which we also realize is no excuse for the behaviors that took place. And boy, oh, when you look back at some of the things that occurred and didn't raise an eyebrow, it's pretty confronting that we found hilarious without even thinking of the implications that it caused or still holds and the damage it actually was doing. And there is no way that these things would cut it these days. So one thing you can definitely say about the 80s is that a lot of TV shows, and more so movies, have not aged so well, as in sexism was rife.
There's not as much censorship as there is.
So it's pretty gross what we can now look back on and say,
it was acceptable.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah. But at the time, dear listeners, it was normal to see these behaviors. So I got some points I want to just talk about on some of the shit that was sexism in the movies, especially. Do you ever remember the movie Bikini Shop?
No. So
this was an 80s movie, and I remember watching it and I fucking loved it. I had it recorded, used to wet myself laughing. But the whole premise of the movie was that there was these two guys in California or Miami or somewhere in a beach town where they owned a bikini shop. and they put a two-way mirror in the change rooms, and they could just watch women
Sounds a bit
getting
like
changed.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Well,
Like,
I've got that
remember
listed
that?
next, yeah. So, and they've got like the two-way mirror just to watch them. I can't even remember like what the outcome of the movie was. Maybe they found love, but I think if they found love, it was actually after they watched the woman getting
Mm.
changed through the fucking thing. It was just completely.
There was lots of ones as well. I remember where like a woman would be like passed out or whatever, and then they would like, try to make out with her and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And that was like totally hilarious
Okay,
and
and totally
slapstick
okay.
comedy.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, it's so
Unbelievable.
funny.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. Revenge of the Nerds. So
Mm.
the scene where the hottie of the movie unknowingly has sex with the main nerd, thinking it was her boyfriend after he stole her boyfriend's mask and sleeps with her.
Mm.
And when she finds out when he takes his mask off, she's just like, "Oh my God, it's you. Wow, you were so good." And she goes, "Why are you so good?" And he goes, "Because all jocks think about is sports, all nerds thinks about is sex." And she's like, "Oh yeah." And she's into it. And it's
Mm.
rape.
Yeah. I was just thinking.
But at the time, it
That's
was like,
not consent,
"Yay, the
guys.
nerd wins. Yay." Everyone was cheering the nerd on. 16 Candles, where one of the guys tells his girlfriend, where one of the guys goes downstairs after a party and he's had just shagged his girlfriend, and he goes down to his friend and he's like, "Oh, my girlfriend's drunk and passed out upstairs if you want to have a go, because I'm finished with her." And that for us was funny. Again, it's just, as
I
you
don't
said,
remember that bit.
oh, it's terrible. And even Aussie kids shows didn't escape it. Do you remember Aggro, the puppet?
Mm.
He was controlled by Jamie Dunn,
Jamie
who would,
Dunn.
yeah, sit under the desk with his hand up the puppet and doing the whole fucking kids show shit.
Make all
While
the
his
sexist comments, and it was a kids' show.
and his co-host was also being harassed when he was getting a bit handsy, like it's him like going, "Oh," and shit like that, jumping. And yeah, I remember as a kid watching this, as a woman would jump and they'd get a bum pinch or something and being like, it's terrible. It's confronting, isn't it, when you look back at it? And like, you think that people from a different generation to us, younger than us, if you'd believe, might be like, "How did you like find that?" It's like, I don't know. I can't explain it. I feel terrible about it, but that's just how it was, unfortunately.
Okay, so look, I'm gonna parlay mine into a whole big piece.
Go for it.
And I'm gonna start off with driving without air conditioning.
Mm.
So
Was it even a thing? Did it even exist in cars back then? Or was it just the
fucking
fan?
way. I don't know what rich kid lifestyle you grew up in.
I didn't have it.
But I certainly
That's
didn't
what I
have
said.
aircon. I don't even
was just
remember. Like
turn the fucking vent to make sure the air came in from outside.
Oh, there was no vents. It was wind your fucking windows down if you're hot. And we used to drive when we were little because we lived in Sydney when we were quite small before we moved to the Central Coast. So that was like a 2.5 hour drive. And my sister used to spew every time. Every single time she used to get car sick and spew her guts up. Also, it didn't help that my parents both chain smoked in the front seat, and it went back into us. And also, when we opened the windows, the smoke just copped us in the face.
Or you get the ash in the eye.
Oh, the ash in the eye. And I used to cough. I'd be like, "Dad." My sister had asthma. So it was even worse.
Time.
She didn't complain as much as I did.
My mother smoked Winnie Blues all throughout her pregnancy with us.
They both smoked Winnie Blues and Winnie Reds, mate. My dad mostly smoked Winnie Reds. And I'd be sat in the back going, "I can't breathe properly, Dad. The smoke's too much." And he'd be like, "Stop your whinging." Yes, shut up. Seriously, I'm going to drive all this way and I have to listen to your whinging. Put your head out the window. So there'd be me with my head out the window.
Have you seen Hereditary?
To get fresh air. While my sister was spewing next to me.
See, smoke actually never bothered me. I was just so surrounded by smoke in the living room, in the kitchen, in the bathroom.
So were we,
everywhere.
though. We were.
It just was like a normal thing.
The car for me was just like I couldn't handle it. And I think now,
especially when it was cold and you'd have to have the windows up.
Like Link whinges about long car drives. Like even if we have to drive like 40 minutes, he's like, "It's so far." And I'm just like, you have no idea, son. You have no idea like what we used to go through. Yeah. And that was like every school holidays, weekends, because it was always about going to see the family. So you drive, you'd all get packed into the car. Because that's what we did. Like wasn't like you could sit down and binge a TV show or,
Yeah.
go and like do activities because no one had any money.
Yeah.
Everyone was like bored of going to parks. Everyone wanted to and there wasn't parks like there is now anyway. You might like find a slippery gym in some random spot.
It was a field of grass. Entertain yourself. If you're bored, then you're boring.
One tennis ball, but you don't have to share it.
Trying to play catch? Guess so.
Hide and seek was the big game of the year, and also Tiggy.
Yeah, and Bull Rush.
But talking about
Red Rover. Red Rover.
It was also a time when in Australia drink driving only got outlawed in the 80s. So I remember a couple of times my dad came to pick us up from stuff like so my mum used to work at the local pub. And I remember a couple of times dad came to pick us up and he was like 5 sheets to the wind, right? But before that, so you can understand how they've been living their life drinking and going, I feel fine to drive. I drive. I don't need to worry about a breath. And there was no breathalyzers back then anyway.
No. Can you walk a straight line, sir?
Yep. Yeah. And we were also on the Central Coast, which is the middle and buttfuck nowhere. So I remember mum, once they brought those laws in, finding out dad had driven to pick us up, like literally roasting the shit out of him. Did it stop him? No.
No, sir, Bob. I'll have another pot of 4X gold. Thank you.
We used to go, right? Dad might pick us up even then we were quite little. So maybe not so much after school, maybe me after school, but Sarah was probably with him when he didn't work and stuff like that. And we'd go sit at the pub that mum worked in because she'd give him free drinks because she worked there. So he'd drink, and then still drive us places.
Yeah. No, that's so true.
And it was like no big deal. And on a good day, when they were all flush with cash, you might get a packet of chips each, right? Or you might get a packet of chips to share. Yeah. And then you'd fight like crazy about what flavour you were going to get.
And they were a smaller packet from the vending machine too, weren't they?
Oh, they used to, we never had vending machines back then. I don't know where you fucking grew up, but it was like a basket on the bar, where they just get you a packet of chips. And then
I grew up in Capella Badhouse, where you live now.
When it was pretty much. That's what I'm saying. We didn't have fucking vending machines.
Maybe it wasn't a vending machine.
But there'd be like a packet behind, and then sometimes when dad was a bit flush with cash, he'd be like, yeah, I'll get a pack of cheese and I'm going to pack of salt and vinegar. And we'd be
French
like,
fries.
And mum would keep us in like, soft drinks. Because back then it was like, you had 20,000 soft drinks, honey, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Sugar is the Lord's milk.
It means you won't whinge as much when you want to go home.
But fuck, you'll be hyperactive.
And the amount of times we used to fall asleep underneath a table.
Yes.
Leaning up on each other.
I was back in the 80s too, pokies were not allowed in pubs in Queensland.
Yonks. Yeah,
so
and even in New South Wales, it took a while for them to come in.
Well, mum and dad used to drive to New South Wales, take us kids with them in the back of the car, and they'd go to Seagulls or Twin Towns, and they'd be in there in the pokies, and they have a kids' room. So all the kids used to be sat in there with video games, and then you'd run no money, you'd be bored, you'd been there for hours, and you'd come walking out, and you'd be wandering the pokies looking for mum, and you'd be like, Mum, I'm bored. But you can't be here. Like, can I have 20 cents? I'm fucking bored. Here, now go away. And then you have to walk back to the fucking kids' room that was fucking small and probably full of cigarette smoke still. From the fucking 16-year-olds that were smoking ciggies.
The constant cigarette smoke that surrounded us all the time.
All right, so the last one I'm going to touch on, which probably should have been my second last, because it's a bit of a downer, was the 80s AIDS epidemic in Australia. So the AIDS epidemic in 1980s was a devastating global health crisis that primarily affected the gay community and people who injected drugs. The virus was responsible for AIDS, HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, was first identified in 81, and by the end of the decade, it had become a pandemic affecting millions of people.
Do you remember, I think it was in the 80s, it might have been the early 90s that we saw it. Do you remember the movie with Molly Ringwald? And it was like a movie about trying to educate people on AIDS, about how it's not just for gay people and it's not just for people who do drugs, because her character got AIDS and she was a female
through
from
a blood
having sex.
transfusion.
No, she had sex with a guy who had it.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell so much about him or what he'd been doing, but basically it was like anyone that you have sex with
Did
could
she have a
potentially
kid?
have the virus. No, she ended up dying, and it was a
Oh.
true story. It was based on a true story. She played the character. Google it right now. It just came to me all of a sudden like an 80s warning film, and she was the main character, and she went around and ended up being a person who gave talks to high school kids and stuff about the fact that she got
Ah.
AIDS through
Based on a true story, Molly Ringwald stars as Alison Gertz, a young white, upwardly mobile woman. Fatal love.
upwardly mobile. What the
That's
fuck
what it
does that
says.
mean?
Upwardly mobile woman who has contracted the AIDS virus from a one-night fling 5 years before. Fatal love.
And she ends up like, she just starts getting a cough or something, and she goes, and they don't know what's wrong with her for ages because they just completely didn't even think that she would ever have AIDS because she was a white woman.
Upwardly mobile woman.
Upwardly mobile woman. But it was like a tale they showed. I remember it was like in English or something. I watched it. It might have been
What
high
year
school.
did
I
it
watched
come
it.
out? I can't find the year. Something to Live For, sorry. The Alison Gertz story, 1992.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was about how she contracted AIDS, but she contracted it in the 80s though. Like came out in the 90s. Yeah.
It came out in 92.
But it was a cautious tale to not just about being a homosexual, but also straight people can get this disease and she died from it because, they didn't have the cures.
Anything to
not
sort
the
of
cures,
remedy
but
it. Yeah.
things that they needed.
I
think she died of pneumonia in the end because they all died of pneumonia, didn't they?
Well, they all die of some infection that their body can't fight off. So, so it's funny you say that because this sort of leads into some of the shocking ways in which they try to educate people as well. So at the beginning of the epidemic, there was a lot of fear and confusion and misinformation surrounding AIDS. Many people believed that AIDS was a punishment, Paul Rock. Many people believed it was a punishment for immoral behavior, and there was a significant amount of stigma and discrimination against people living with HIV, which in turn turned to people who were homosexual. This led to a slow response from governments and healthcare systems, as many people did not see AIDS as a priority or a public health crisis because they didn't think it would happen to them.
Yeah. And you got it because of your choices.
Yeah. So we actually just watched a 4-part miniseries that's on ABC iView that's called In Our Blood. And it's based on the AIDS pandemic in Australia during Bob Hawke's era plus. It's made in Australia. They filmed, do you know the Sporties in Brisbane? Sporties Club?
Oh, yeah. I know the one.
So it's set in Sydney, but they changed Sporties into a club called Patches, and they filmed a lot of it around there and in Newstead and shit like that. So it's cool to watch it and see, oh, I've been there. But it actually covers the hard work activists took in getting the Australian government to really act quickly on the issue of AIDS when it hit Australia and led to the infamous Grim Reaper ad in 1987. Do you remember that ad? You do not remember the Grim Reaper ad? Jesus, Scott, I'm going to play this for you.
87. Right, I was a baby. I was 7.
Okay, I'm going to play it for you now. Have you noticed?
I lived a very sheltered childhood.
Okay. So the advertisement depicted the Grim Reaper bowling in a bowling alley and knocking over men, women, and child pins, which represented AIDS victims. The ad was savage and terrifying, which is exactly what it wanted to achieve. It aired only for 3 weeks out of an intended 6-week run, cut short due to media criticism and public hysteria. Nevertheless, the commercial was regarded as highly successful in raising awareness with the Australian public about the issue, and is credited with the fact that Australia never got a second wave of the infection as experienced by a lot of countries. And so even though AIDS obviously still continued, you think of COVID as a pandemic and the waves that we got with that. It stopped. That's what it's credited for stopping. So even though when you watch the ad, and I remember at the time, it's truly terrifying.
It was considered a pandemic, not in our scale now. We know what a pandemic is. Well, I mean, it was a pandemic, but
it was a pandemic,
so many people, but not in the way that COVID took over the country and ended up in lockdown and all the stuff.
In such a short time. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pandemic.
But it was truly terrifying. And when you watch the ad, just like, well, this is eye-opening, but you don't actually realize the effect the ad had on the whole
But
health
it's like,
system.
and we've talked about this on the podcast before, and I can't remember what we talked about it in, but I talked about Bryce Courtney's novel about his son who got it because he had that blood disease, and he
Yes,
was
and he
getting all
got it
those
through a blood
and
transfusion.
it was in
Yeah,
the 80s, and then he ended up dying from AIDS because of the illness that he had and all the blood transfusions that he got that of infected blood, and ultimately because he already had a sickness, died quite young. But it just goes to show, like in Australia, didn't just affect people who, were homosexual or were
yeah,
druggies.
exactly. And that's what they had to sort of ring the bells of people to
It's
fucking
easy for
make
them
them
to
listen.
wrap things up like that because of the hysteria. It's like, let's put it into a box and be like, oh, only these people are going to get it.
Yeah,
So you don't have
you're
to be
okay.
worried.
Yeah,
Just do these things. Again,
exactly.
like COVID.
Yeah, yeah. You're not old. You're not disabled. But you're fine.
We did leave it on a really sober note, didn't we?
We did. But we'll pick it up again with our next episode.
Well, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our little time warp to the 80s. What a time, please.
Tune in next week for What's the Haps, where we discuss the topics that piqued our interests over the last 4 weeks. And remember, if you're liking what you hear, tell your mates, or do as we do and listen together over a bottle of vino. Because remember, or several, if you're whining, you're winning.
Second
Good
bottle,
night,
no
you stitches.
judgment, please.
Hashtag. Good night, you stupid bitches.
Good night.
We haven't used that in a while, have we?
judgment.
Hashtag no judgment. Second bottle, no judgment. We'll bring that in next. Night.
Good night.
Yeah, that stupid bitch. He's a stupid bitch. What a stupid bitch. That stupid bitch.